going on, guys? Ben from JK Gear and Gadgets. So today we're going to do a video on beadlocks. Go over some of the pros, cons, and talk about if it's something you could use on your rig or if it's something you just might not need. Beadlocks aren't for everybody, but they definitely have their place in the off-road industry.
Alright, so let's start off and talk about a beadlock opposed to a standard wheel. On the left there's a beadlock, on the right is a standard wheel, and I have an old tire there used as reference. So beadlocks, as you can tell, they have a different style to them. Has that outer ring with bolts, opposed to a normal wheel just has a flat lip. Not all wheels that have bolts like that are going to be beadlocks. There's a lot of standard wheels that use that look and call it a street lock. But let's check out the lip of this wheel. As you can tell right there, this is where the tire is going to sit inside. That's called the bead of the tire, which you can see right here. So normally you get your tire installed at a shop or wherever, and the bead's going to push against here from the air pressure. Opposed to a beadlock, where if we look closely, this is a two-piece wheel. This outer ring attaches to the wheel via bolts all over here. And what that does is clamp down on this bead like this. So if we look at it, the inside of the beadlock is going to be on here, and the outer ring is going to be on here, and it uses bolts right here to pinch on that bead. So you're not really relying on air pressure, you're relying on the bolts to suck it in and hold the bead. So what does that do? Why would you want a beadlock opposed to a standard wheel? Let's talk about that. So it all boils down to airing down off-road. There's multiple benefits of airing down off-road. It's going to give you better traction because the tire's going to have a wider footprint. It's going to be a softer ride because the tire can absorb a lot of the impact. I'll show some examples of that in a little bit. As well, what'd I say? As well, I mean, a lot of it's going to give you a better ride. When you air down, it's going to give more traction. You're going to have a wider footprint of the tires. All this, I'm going to air down this tire soon and show you some examples. Yes, you can air down with a standard wheel, but you run the risk of losing a bead, and what that means is the tire is going to separate from the wheel and it's pretty much going to go flat. Whereas these beadlocks you can run pretty much as low as you want, and you don't really have to worry about losing the bead. So great for off-roading, we know that. But what can be, what's the downside? Let's go into the pros and cons. The pros of beadlocks are super clear. You're going to get a lot better off-road traction. The ride's going to be softer. You can air down lower. They look cool. Another pro about them is that you can put on tires at home because all you have to do is undo the bolts, pull the ring off, and use a bucket and a high lift or whatever to take the tire off. So you can swap tires at home. You still have to either use Dynabeads or take it to a shop to get balanced, but still you're saving a lot of money. So I'd say those are the pros. Alright, cons of the beadlocks. They're freaking heavy compared to your other wheels. They can be anywhere from 10 to 15 pounds heavier than a standard wheel. Just because all the extra hardware, they're beefier, but you're going to notice that weight in your gas mileage and engine performance, especially if you haven't re-geared. Cost, they're usually double the price of a standard wheel. Maintenance, there's also a lot of maintenance that goes into these. You're going to have to retorque all those bolts numerous times a year. In a lot of states, technically, they're not DOT approved. So for a lot of people, that's kind of a turn off. There's a couple manufacturers that make them that are DOT approved. Street legal beadlocks, the Hutchinsons. I think Mopar makes some. So I mean, there's options out there for that. Alright, that's enough talking. I'm going to go ahead and air down this tire. I'm going to drop it down to like 7 PSI, and then we'll see how much, I'll take a picture, show the difference of an inflated tire and deflated tire so you can see the difference, and then I might drive around the yard a little bit just to show you how much it cushions it when you're running a lower PSI. Alright, so as you can tell, we are aired down. This is right around like 5 to 7 PSI, and as you can tell, it really increases the track width of our tire and contact path. Really bulges out. so that's going to help us. One thing, it is a lot harder to turn your steering wheel when you have your tires aired down, and that's why a lot of people run hydro assist steering. What that is, a hydraulic ram that's going to help turn these tires. But like I said, I'm going to show you how airing down helps the ride, lets the tire absorb a lot of the cushion or impact, and then take it for a little drive in my yard. Alright, so I'm going to just kind of simulate this, but benefit of airing down is when you can really look at the bottom of the tire and see how much more impact that the tire is absorbing, opposed to if it's really stiff and rigid, it's going to transfer a lot of that energy through your suspension onto the Jeep, the body. So the tire, when it's aired down, it's going to take the impact's a lot better, a lot softer, as well as transferring. If we go over a big rock, pointy rock, the tire's going to kind of mold around the rock, opposed to an inflated tire that's just going to want to sit on top of a pointy rock or puncture it. So airing down, it really lets the tire move, bend, and absorb a lot more of that impact, opposed to transferring it straight to the Jeep. Alright, so I got my little rock set up here. I'm going to drive over the rock with the aired down tire opposed to the non-aired down tire, and we're going to see the differences. Alright, so that was an awesome example of how the aired up tire really just pushed the rock, didn't get the traction over it, opposed to the aired down tire where it really molded over and got more traction. So prime example, if you're rock crawling, you're really going to want traction on rocks like this. So, I mean, couldn't have asked for a better example that really showed the difference between aired up and aired down. Alright guys, so now that you've seen the differences and heard some of the pros and cons, I'll just go ahead and kind of boil it down to what it is. Beadlocks are amazing. They do have their downfalls, but I'd recommend them on any Jeep that's going to see a lot of time off-road. But if you have the type of Jeep, or you do the type of wheeling where you've never had an issue with airing down, if you've never broke a bead on the trail, if you really don't air down that low, or if you just don't go off-roading that often, or if you just hit the trails, the windy trails, or just hang out in the sand, nothing crazy, no rocks, then beadlocks might not be for you. You don't really have to have them to off-road. But if you find yourself wheeling, in harder areas, rock crawling, places where you've you broke the bead a few times, then beadlocks definitely are for you. I'm glad I've had them. I've broken beads before when I didn't have beadlocks. Let's see what else. They're worth the price. I've definitely used them. It's also nice to have the extra protection of that outer ring. As you can tell, they have some pretty good chew marks, opposed to if this was a normal steel wheel. That lip could break, move out, let air out. But no, overall I definitely recommend beadlocks, but a lot of people that you see have them just don't need them. They don't wheel that often. Kind of negates the pros. Especially it's hurting your economy and in performance of the Jeep. But overall, I highly recommend them if you're going to wheel a lot. And as you can tell, they look pretty cool too. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure you give it a good thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Leave some comments below, and yeah, hope you enjoyed it and learned something. So see you guys later.